should be back live and trying again. Don't know what exactly has been going on. Should be good to go from here on out, I hope. If it continues kicking me out of the server, then we may have to call it for tonight, sadly. But anyway, let's talk a little bit about our championships that we have tonight. We have multiple championships on the line. Our Pro Drivers Championship and our AM Drivers Championship. Currently leading the Pro Drivers Championship is the MSA Racing BMW of Silf. And next in line is going to be the 5x Motorsports McLaren of Slapshot, who is just a few points behind. If you calculate those drop races, it does complicate things just a little bit, but Slapshot, if he can get a win tonight and potentially a win next week in the finale, that could be a big momentum shift in the way things have gone this season and within the last couple seasons. MSA Racing, since they have joined, have just been an absolutely dominant force. And we shall see if Slapshot 5x Motorsports means 5 championships. And we'll see if maybe can be a return back to the top for Slapshot. He has seen the podium, he has seen victory, but it has been a long time since he's seen a championship. Very possible to get that return to the top once again. And I hadn't looked at the timing board, but he is quickest right now, knowing that he's got something to race for. We'll see if this translates over to some quick lap times in qualifying. And looking over at the AM split, Scary leading the division in AM, 25 points ahead of Peachy, who is still yet to set a lap time. But qualifying going to be extremely crucial for the AM class, especially for Peachy. Just needs to try and get ahead of Scary and score a couple more positions worth of points to have the best shot possible heading into the season finale. Season finale next week will be at Spa, track that has been quite a while since we have raced there here at GoFAST Racing, and when we have raced there, it has always been chaos. I remember going back, one of the first times that I commentated a full league race for GoFAST Racing at Spa, we had an absolutely catastrophic incident at the very beginning of the race. A bit of a sore memory for the majority of the field. That did wipe out about half the field on the first lap. And those who survived very well. And I believe that was not the last time we were at Spa, but the last time we were at Spa was when Guzman in the number 69 Ferrari actually put his machine on pole ahead of some of the top talent that we have ever had here at GFR. Really marked a shift for Guzman, just a shift of pace, and has been absolutely flying ever since. Speaking of absolutely flying, Nico in the past couple seasons has really increased. I'd say his skill has always been there, but has increased his pace. Has just developed so much in the past couple seasons and has brought himself a couple victories, or at least one victory since, and many podiums. It's all eyes on Slapshot. The track is very, very nice running right now. I do believe we are going to transition into the evening hours during this race, so the track will be cooling and may get a little bit quicker before it gets slower as the track starts to stick up before it gets really cold and the tires aren't quite so malleable to the track surface. But the real battles to watch tonight and into the finale next week at Spa is going to be between Slapshot and Silth, currently P1 and P4 in free practice, and Scary and Peachy. Scary currently P4 in, and Peachy currently what looks to be P8, but has not set a lap time. So we'll see exactly how Peachy will stack up when we get through our AM qualifying session. Team championships, though, they are pretty much wrapped up. MSA Racing has locked down the Pro Team Championship, and in AM, Too Slow Roadblock Racing has pretty much locked down the championship. Scary will continue to score a few more points. Two Nights Racing, though, does have two drivers out there still scoring points, so there is a possibility that Two Nights, if they bring home consecutive 1-2 finishes, could outscore Too Slow Roadblock Racing before the end of the season. And those Too Slow guys would love to have that team championship under their belts. Silth knocked down to P5 as Guzman slots into Silth's P4. And we do have a newcomer in the McLaren Purple GT3 driver, making a GoFAST Racing debut. Slapshot has been demoted, though, as Nico goes almost a quarter of a second quicker in the Audi. Very tricky car to drive, but very fast in the right hands, and Nico seems to be very capable hands. About 40 seconds away from our qualifying session, and Slapshot has closed the gap 37 thousandths of a second now. Guzman jumps up above Ouroboros into the 3rd position. Currently still quickest out on track is Nico in the Audi. Force Fate currently leading in AM. Quicker than OWR Louis, who has been a dominant presence in AM when he has decided to join us for some races. And Knifestalk P3 in the GTR. Rabel P4 in the Porsche. And Dark, I believe, still on one more lap. Does he have what it takes? And if he does he bring this lap all the way around to the line, or does he maybe try and save the talent so he doesn't run out of it just before go time in qualifying? Bit of a wiggle in, yes, coming into the pit lane. Practice pit stop, and very quick pit stop. Guzman will come back around, as well as the number 46 Lexus of Ted Herkus, another driver who has found himself on the podium, if not all over the podium. He's not always had the best of luck in coming home with those podiums, but really, for the Lexus crowd, has been a dominant presence and has also been an encouraging presence, showing the other Lexus drivers, hey, may not be so many people using this car, but you can definitely get things done with it. That actually may be invalidated for Guzman, and that will bring an end to the session. Who is going to be first out? Does look to be Louis first out in AM qualifying, followed by Force Fate, the number 29 McLaren. Again, the ones to watch, the ones fighting for the championship, are going to be Scary and Peachy. Scary in the number 68 Lexus, and Peachy in the number 30 McLaren. Force Fate, I don't believe, is quick enough. Would have to be must win in the 2 finishing races of the season, this race and the next one, and pretty much have to hope that it's DNFs for Peachy and Scary, which is highly unlikely. So the championship's really between the 68 and the 30. And those 2 drivers, actually one behind the other on track currently. And Scary, all he has to do is cover Peachy. He can cover Peachy in this race and cover Peachy in the next race. He will have the championship locked down. Much easier said than done, though. see where these drivers line up. Louis should be the first to set the pace. Just have to wait and see what time Louis is able to bring as he comes across the start-finish line. Force Fate not far behind. And it does look to be that Force Fate may have closed the gap. He was quicker in practice. What'll it be from Louis across the line? As long as it has been valid. And it is not valid for Louis, but it's a 159.650 for Force Fate, and that is going to be time to beat in Am. Manelli jumps up into P2 in the McLaren. Next across the line, the 202 of Nightwalker. Up to P4. Nightstalk in the GTR actually goes quickest, and by quite a large margin. 3/4 of a second. And Scary does what he needs to do so far. Peachy currently P5, Scary P2. Peachy has been chasing down an AM championship for a long time and just has not been able to reel one in. Seems that he has been closer than ever this season. Constantly just one position away, just a few points away, one win away. Peachy not in the best position to try and win it tonight. He's at least got a chance. Needs to find 1.3 seconds to clear the field and get ahead. Really needs the race wins for those extra points, and hope that Scary is not able to get as close, or at least needs to clear Scary by quite a bit. Louis goes quickest, 158.380. Nightstalk still in P2, Force Fate P3, Scary knocked down to P4. Still just trying to chase down Porsche of Peachy, and looks like he wants to build a little bit more tire mark. Not quite got those tires in the window. We'll have two more opportunities at a flying lap, though. Gotta hope that he's got the tires left in it for a couple more goes around the track. Onto the old pit straight and across the line. It's no improvement on that lap, which we didn't expect any from his weaving. Trying to chase down Peachy. Scary has the easy job. He just has to score either right behind or right ahead of Peachy. Peachy is really in must-win situations. Nightstalk currently P2 still. Force Fate around 3/4 of a tenth behind. happened to Rabel there. Trundling off into the interior arena section. Louis is still quickest. Is he staying quickest? It does seem to be one final lap to try and get some sort of improvement. And Louis is clearing the AM field currently. Does Nightstock have any sort of answer? It's a long gap to try and fill. Over half a second. That is a ton of time to try and find. Does he find any on that lap? No, he does not. And it's surely not going to happen on this lap with that big slide through Stowe. Sorry, that wasn't Stowe, that was Cobbs, my bad. I think it's just cruising to get back around for Nightstock. He will not have enough time to get back around for one more flying lap. Scary is going to be done. Will stay P4. Does Peachy have any slight improvement? Needs a 10.5 to at least get ahead of Scary to try and score some more points at the end of the night. Likely going to be pit entries for the rest of the field. I don't believe that Louis or Force Fate are on valid laps right now. At least the marching ants at the bottom would indicate so. Yes, they will both come into the pit lane. Would expect Nightstock to come in as well. Does Manelli have any improvement? No, Manelli will come in, and the pro field has been released. Slapshot out in front, but who is that just ahead of him? That is actually the Ferrari of Zeus, who I believe is on one more flying lap. 12 of Nightstock may still be on some sort of improvement. No, not going to improve on that lap. What about the 27 of Rabel? Will not improve either. And what about the 30 of Peachy? Just needs a 10.5. Nearly finds it, but just not quite enough. Will stay P5. And unless Zeus is able to bring some sort of improvement, the AM field will be set. Louis P1, Force Fate P2, Nightstock P3, Scary P4, Peachy P5, Rabel P6, Manelli P7, Iceman P8, Zeus P9. Does Zeus have any improvement? He's being run down by Slapshot, who I'm sure will at least somewhat appreciate the slipstream, especially if Zeus goes to cross the start-finish line on this lap and not bring it into the pit lane. And he will be giving Slapshot some tow, at least down the Wellington straight. I don't know if that is going to keep that lap valid or not. Around left field for Zeus, and he will stay out on track, so Slapshot will actually be getting some beneficial slipstream here, especially from a driver who is going to pull over to the left-hand side. He does promote himself up to P8, so Nightwalker goes down to P9, and all eyes turn to Slapshot to set the pace for the pro field. Purple GT3 driver, the newcomer tonight, making his debut in GoFAST Racing. Currently at the back of the grid, but still has not set a lap time, so we shall see exactly what kind of times Purple GT3 driver is able to bring. Always welcoming new faces, new drivers to GFR. So welcome in, Purple. We'll see if we hope to see you here with us in the future. To Village and the loop for Slapshot. We're hanging the left-hander at Aintree and then hammer down the Wellington straight for the hard braking zone. Awkward rotation into Brooklands. Rear of the car really wants to separate from the front. Getting into Brooklands, especially if you're in one of the differently weighted cars, like one of the front-engine BMW or Mercedes or Aston Martin or Lexus, or also really wants to rotate if you are in a Porsche. 158.365, the time to beat from Slapshot. Is there anyone who immediately beats it? F-bomb P10, Guzman P9, F-bomb down to P11, unclean across P4 so far. OWR Louis and Force Fate have put themselves pretty high up the order with their laps. Louis will likely have quite a few pro drivers between himself and Force Fate P2 in AM. Silth trying to hold on to the championship. I believe a win tonight would secure the championship. Goes up to the top of 158.074 from Silth. Just some more dominant MSA racing driving. Either from Silth or from Hope Blue. It is always a dominant force with the chrome and green. I've watched these guys compete in many leagues and many events over my commentating tenure. They are always very impressive and have not disappointed with their rise in GoFAST racing. Nico, P3, 18 thousandths of a second the difference. Guzman also, Nico P2, Guzman up to P3. Slapshot has been demoted down to P5 as Uncleaner Cross jumps up ahead. Does Nico have the 200ths of a second it would require to jump back ahead of Silth? We did see quite a few times into the sub 2 minutes. Especially into the sub 158s. No sub 158s yet. Silth did not go quicker on that previous lap. Just a couple minutes left in qualifying before we get started with tonight's race. We'll see if Nico has an answer to Silth. Doesn't need much time at all. Hopefully that wasn't an invalidation there. And he definitely finds it at 157.750. 3¼ tenths clear of Silth with a couple laps left to go. But there's still plenty of time for improvement. Speaking of Slapshot, I'm sure he's got some time left under his belt, but he always likes to save it till the end. What does Slapshot bring to the table? It's good enough for P3, shaved a couple tenths out of it, but it's not enough for the top spot, and that's where he wants to be. That's where he needs to be if he wants to have any shot at this championship. Guzman goes quicker at 157.612, and now from the top dogs, the lap times are dropping. Still no times from Ouroboros, Goose, or Francisco. Francisco, I believe, the only of those drivers who will be able to bring a lap. Francisco may not get a valid lap in at all, at least not a fast flying one, as he was slow out of Copse there. As he comes through Maggots and Beckett's now. Ouroboros and Goose will not be qualifying, so they will be starting from the back of the grid. Around left field for Silth. If he's not quick enough on this lap, he's got one more. And so does the rest of the field. Takes some time out of it, but nowhere near as much as he would need to. Slapshot has more work to do, but I've seen Slapshot pull that miracle off before. Does Nico have the 10th and a half needed? If he doesn't got it, or if he doesn't have it on this lap, he does have one more opportunity on the next lap, but it has to be absolutely aces all the way through. Hammer down out of left field. Across the line, no improvement, but he does have one more lap. 4:16 of Slapshot, just barely going to have enough time to get one more lap in. We'll see if he'll need it. Will just barely make it across the line to go for one more. Finds a couple more tenths, but needs 3 tenths to be clear of Guzman for the pole position. Guzman does not improve, and Guzman has finished his qualifying session. Does not have a checkered flag, so I think Guzman has one more lap. Uncleaner cross up to P5. That's where he will cross the line. Nate P will cross in P15. Ted Herkus takes that P5 away from Uncleaner cross. F-bomb comes across P12. Francisco P24. So Ouroboros, Goose, and Francisco will bring up the rear. No improvement. MCR 420 launches himself up to P4. Silth is not going to improve in the pit lane. There are still 3 candidates for pole position out on track. Nico in the Audi, who we will see cross the line first. Down the Wellington Straight. Does he have the time left in his pocket? We have had a disconnection, and I believe it was MCR. So hopefully we can get MCR back in with us. MCR from P4. Out of left field. Across the line, he's going for it. He must have some sort of lap time. Does he have enough for pole? Yes, he does. A 157.4. And now it is a lot more work for Slapshot. Guzman has entered the pit lane. Does Slapshot have 4 tenths? It's not the 3 tenths that he needed anymore. He needs half a second to be clear. And that wiggle of the rear out of left field is not going to spell victory for Slapshot. So frustratingly enters the pit lane, and it is going to be Nico in the Audi on pole. And that is a very unfortunate turn of events, and now good to go. Thought Nico was going to be starting from the pit lane. Nico, P1, Guzman, P2, Slapshot, P3, Silth, P4, Ted, P5, Uncleaner Cross, P6, Louis, P7, P1 in Am, Force Fate, P2 in Am, Nightstalk, P9, Scary, P10, your Am championship leader currently, F-Bomb, P11, Peachy, P12, your Am runner-up. Rabel P13, Nate P14, Manelli P15, Iceman P16, Zeus P17, Nightwalker P18, Purple GT3 P19, Ouroboros P20, Goose P21, and Francisco P22. that rounds out your field. Give us just a moment. We will be right back for the formation lap and green flag of the penultimate race here in GoFAST Racing Season 7. Welcome back, as Nico is going to be leading our field across the start-finish line. It's not Nico's first pole position, but there are very many hungry drivers, two of which have much more to lose. The first being Slapshot, who is trying to just have a chance at taking home the Season 7 Drivers' Championship, and Sylph, who is trying to defend his championship lead and take home his first personal Drivers' Championship. I believe it would be first personal. Yes, because Hope Blue took home championship in Season 7. Do have a couple drivers seemingly with some disconnections behind. Zeus will be starting from the pit lane. Nate P will be starting from the pit lane. Getting a bit wild for Nico at the start, desperately trying to get those tires warmed up and doing a little bit too much tire warming. Silth trying to get those brakes warmed up. Running up just a little further away. Will back the field up as they get the 2x2 call. It's two mid-engine cars in the front row, but no McLarens on the front row, which is actually quite unusual. An Audi and a Ferrari at the front. And we will see. Say Nico going very slowly, and Guzman had pulled ahead just a bit. Nico with Guzman. Slapshot has the inside for turn 1 of Cobbs. This one could get very wild very quickly. As we await the green flag. Slapshot, if he can get a jump, can try and get ahead of Nico, and he does get the jump. Will not have anywhere to go up the inside. There is a little bit of contact between himself and Silth. Is that going to open the door for Ted up the inside? He's now got to sit around the outside, but 3 wide as they go into Maggots and Beckett's. And Slapshot is actually going to have to relinquish the position to Silth. A little bit of contact with Ted, and Slapshot is going to try and run down the BMW, as Silth has a lot of experience at the front of the field. Louis in the Lamborghini, just ahead of Scary and Force Fate. Force Fate at the inside at Stowe. Losing Scary the long way around. Scary has a major advantage to the rest of the field, and that is the top speed of that Lexus. Just has to get in the right spot to be able to use it. Down the Hamilton straight, not much going to work for the top speed in that Lexus. He is closing, but will not be able to get close enough. It's down the old pit straight and the hangar straight. That is where the Lexus top speed is really going to show its hand. Uncleaner Cross defending both against Ted Herkis and Louis. Louis wants to try and find a way through, put as many pro drivers between himself and Force Fate as he can. As of right now, Nico is pulling away just ahead in the Audi. There is contact behind, though. Uncleaner Cross hard into the wall. Collects Scary. That's going to have big championship implications. And just as it happens, Peachy finds his way through. And a massive incident. Multiple cars involved. Scary involved. Could possibly have his race basically over. F-bomb involved, Uncleaner Cross involved in the pit lane. The 3 of Ouroboros, who had made a return here, gets just absolutely collected. And I think many drivers were just hoping to punch a hole through. Some did that a little bit more physically than they would have hoped. Nelly, were you involved in that as well? That was a very big incident, a very uncharacteristic incident, especially for GFR here. Just looked like uncleaner cross got turned across the nose, and he actually flew through the air, a complete passenger, back into the track and got collected by multiple people who were not expecting a McLaren to be 4 wheels off the ground, making a re-entry onto the racing surface. Guzman is not letting Nico run away. Yes, very unfortunate way to end the season. Finale are not going to be running the finale with us in Spa. Down into Brooklyn's trying to rotate the Ferrari a little bit better than the Audi. It does seem that the Ferrari does get better, at least more stable rotation, but it does not seem to be quicker out of the corner than the Audi. Just hoping to stay in the slipstream and be just close enough by the end of the straight to maybe go for an inside lunge. Guzman does take the fastest lap of the race away. Silk and Slapshot still racing themselves. Ouroboros, F-Bomb, and Scary are all going to lose laps. Scary desperately needs to get that Lexus back out on track to score whatever points he possibly can, but that Lexus is in very, very bad shape. The 3 of Ouroboros is damage repaired and cleared back out on track, but will be a lap down. So will Scary, depending on how long this damage repair takes. Scary will be 2 laps down. And Peachy, now in the hot seat, desperately needs to capitalize on this incident. It is kind of the clouds parting during the storm. This is the miracle that Peachy needs to close the gap. Should be outscoring Scary regardless, as long as his race stays clean to the end, but desperately needs to get more points on the board to give himself the best chance at racing for a championship heading into the final round. Right on board with the beautiful sounding Audi R8 GT3. Is trying to run away from Guzman as the door starts to open. Guzman wanted to go for it, but there would have been contact. The trajectory he was going through the corner at. Look who is closing up behind. That is the BMW of Silth, who also has the McLaren of Slapshot in tow. Silth can catch up to Guzman. Silth can't afford to do too many of those, though. Absolutely cannot afford a drive-through penalty for track limits. Silth can catch up to Guzman and Nico and force those two to battle just up ahead. That would bring Slapshot back into it with enough of a shout to possibly go for a position there as well. McLaren of Francisco behind the fellow McLaren of Purple GT3 driver just ahead of Zeus. And the Purple GT3 currently sitting P15 overall. And very early on the brakes, I think Francisco had to take evasive action and not make contact. Francisco and Zeus would go by Purple GT3. Guzman just holding a station to Nico, not gaining but not losing. Look who is slowly gaining the BMW of Silth. still has 416 McLaren of Slapshot just kind of cruising behind, waiting for the right moment to really start to push and get closer. Slapshot can just stay within a second, really within 3/4 of a second of Silth, get use of that slipstream. He should be getting a little bit where he's at, but nowhere near as much as Guzman is getting right now from Nico. Scary has repaired the car back out on track. Uncleaner Cross is repaired as well. It is now a long uphill battle for Scary. 3 laps down. There's really nothing he can do other than just come home with the car and score whatever points he will score from the back of the pack. Trying to find a position past the GTR of Nightstock. Who's no longer in the BMW, switching over to the Mustang. Was very quick in the BMW, but I think he just wanted to change the scenery. The gaps between Silth and Slapshot have now kind of swapped. Silth was 1 second behind Guzman, with Silth 0.9 seconds behind, or with Slapshot 0.9 seconds behind Silth. Now Silth 0.9 seconds behind Guzman, and Slapshot 1 second behind Silth. And this is the battling that Silth and Slapshot need if they want to have a chance at getting back up with the leaders. Slapshot really needs Silth to start getting involved here. Otherwise, it's not looking good for Slapshot, as he is starting to get left behind a bit. Trying to push this Audi as straight as possible through Maggots and Beckett's, and then eventually Chapel. Kind of getting 2 tires on the dirt here and there, and that is really not going to help him in terms of trying to run away. And now Silth has truly caught up. Slapshot just in the background. Guzman has been trying to find a way past Nico. And again, as they continue to battle, it just brings Silth and Slapshot closer and closer in. Silth, as talented as he is not very confident in his pace coming into tonight. I think that may have just been a little bit of humility rather than truth. He is very well within striking distance of the lead. The Audi really seems to struggle with the side-to-side rotation, now just having to try and pin it on the apex to keep Guzman behind. Beckett's once more. Guzman had to back off early to not make contact. That is actually going to put him at a pretty big disadvantage. Right back into the hands of Silth. Now still within slipstream range, should be able to close back up a bit. As we will step away from this battle for just a second to hop on board with the 712 of OWR Louis, suffering a little bit of connection issue. Force Fate, Goose, and Nightstalk, all three behind. We may have a battle for P2, potentially the lead in AM before too long. And a bit of a status check on Peachy. He's a long way behind Nightstalk, currently sitting P4. Thought we had Rabel up there just ahead, but no, we do not. There was a driver in between Nightstalk and Peachy, but Nightstalk side by side through Club Corner as he overtakes Force Fate. And Nightstalk is hunting out for blood, wants to bring home a win in AM. I'm not sure if Nightstalk has ever won in AM, but absolutely flying in the GTR. We're starting to approach the halfway point of this race, getting closer to that pit window. And the top three are still within a blanket of each other. Really only a car length in between them, front and rear. Guzman once again catches up to Nico through Maggots and Beckett's and then out of Brooklyn's in left field, but is just not able to capitalize. Nico doing a good job of defending the position, but how long can he defend before Guzman starts to get restless? He has had the BMW of Silk starting to crowd his rearview mirror more and more as the race has gone on. Just like that, Slapshot is also starting to creep his way into the conversation, even though he may not have been there directly on pace alone. Nightstalk still trying to run down the Mustang of Goose. Goose trying to run down the Lamborghini of Louis. If Goose and Louis get into a little bit of a battle themselves, then that would open the door for Nightstalk and Force Fate to get back in the battle for the AM lead. Now starting to feel the pressure from Silk behind, having to go slightly defensive as they come down the Wellington straight into Brooklands. This is exactly what Nico needs, but it is not what Guzman needs. Guzman was working forward fairly nicely and may still be able to do so, but now has to deal with the pressure. Silk goes for the undercut, pulls into the pit lane all by himself. Has to be a perfect stop, cannot afford a speeding penalty, as that would be the miracle that Slapshot would need for his championship hopes. Now Slapshot, who may have just been pulled along into the slipstream of Guzman and Nico, really has to hope that these next couple laps are good. Silt is very good when it comes to pit strategy. Coming out of the pit lane on the front foot, not on the back foot. Silt has a very good pit box right at the end of the pit lane. Do we see any more takers? Silt off the jacks and rolling. And no penalty. All is good. Now it is up to the top three to try and keep Silth out of the top three. That is a very tall order. So Silth leaves the drivers that have come into the pit lane. When does Nico go? When does Guzman go? When does Slapshot go? I have a feeling that Slapshot is going to try and outlast the rest of these guys. Get a bit of an overcut in if he can. At the same time, that may be Slapshot's only option, as he is losing ground to Guzman and Nico. And look at this. Goose has overtaken Louis, and Nightstalk is going to try and overtake Louis into Cops. Tries to get it done. Louis goes for the undercut. The old switcheroo back up the inside. It's a perfectly executed maneuver. But the battle is on for P1 in AM. Nightstalk in the GTR. Godzilla is very quick down the straights. Play directly into his strengths. As long as he can keep that GTR close enough through the technical sectors. If Nightstalk can get a better corner exit just at the beginning of one of these long straights, Nightstalk will have a very good shot at getting the overtake done, but holding on to it is going to be a completely different story. The GTR, an older, not so used machine. Nightstalk has been running this car all season. It was a bit of an interesting choice. It seems to be pretty good overall. And Nightstalk may actually find himself P3 overall in the AM Championship at the end of the night if he stays where he is now. That GTR pulls right up onto the rear of the Lamborghini. Watching the gaps between our leaders. Bit of a scrub on the front that is going to open the gap, or one would believe, but no, this GTR is just pulling down the hanger straight. Again, not quite close enough into Stowe. It is enough to get a little bit of a reaction out of Louis. Going to be able to end the conversation. Iceman and Rabel have come into the pit lane too late on the brakes, and a bit of a slide into Vale. That is not what you want. Also have a little bit of a twitch from Louis out of club, out of Vale into club. So work to do once again for Nightstalk, and maybe you come into the pits now, try to get the undercut on Louis. Number 7, the Ferrari of Zeus, gets a drive-through penalty for track limits, and it seems to be Nightstalk has had no issue falling right back into the slipstream as he now drops it just a little bit. I believe the tires are getting closer to the end of their life. So we'll see potentially a attempt at an undercut from Nightstalk here if he can get this GTR turned back into the pit lane, and that's exactly what he's going to do. GTR comes in just behind the 28 Mustang of Goose. Our leaders have also come in, Nico, Guzman, and Slapshot. Slapshot having to take a little bit longer to find his box, but he did come in later. Where is this going to put Sylph at the end of these pit stops? We are now officially halfway through this race. Nico and Guzman side by side coming out of the pit lane. There's not enough room for both of them. Where does Silth come out? He is actually not going to overtake them. Guzman and Nico side by side coming out of the pit lane, side by side still through Maggots and Beckett's. Still side by side. Will they stay side by side? Almost 3 wide. Silth wants to try and use his tire advantage. While he has it, he is not going to have it for very long, as Nico and Guzman warm their tires. Guzman wants it bad now. Tries to line up the run around the outside, maybe goes for the undercut of the inside. Silth wants a piece of it though, and Silth is not going to be able to get it. Nose to tail, all 3 of them. There's a bump from Silth though, and Guzman goes off into the GP pit entry. And the stewards are going to be looking at that one for sure. Very sad way for that to go for Guzman. So he will now have to try and run the pack down, and that is not going to be very easy to do. Uncharacteristic mistake from Silth. Again, the stewards are definitely going to be looking at that one with the race finish implications that it holds, and also the championship implications that tonight's finish holds for Silth. Understand there's a lot on the line, and it was just a racing incident. Still, Silth will likely be held liable for that contact into Vale there. And now Nico versus Silth. As Slapshot and Guzman will try and run down the pair. Scary in the number 68. Trying to bring this race to a close, has to score whatever points he can get. PG in the pits will come out behind. Force Fate needs to have a very good pit stop. OWR Louis comes out. Nightstalk is quicker, is going to be on the fresher tires, but Louis has stayed out ahead. Silth still trying to find a way around Nico. Silth and Nico continue to battle. There may be enough time left in the race for Guzman to get brought back into it. It was just the absolutely lightest of taps from Silth onto the rear bumper of Guzman, but that's all it took. These cars are very easily unsettled, especially into a braking zone. Guzman just went for a ride, but again, if Nico can hold Silth back, which he should have no issue doing, Nico can hold Silth back, but they still start to battle just a little bit. Slapshot may be able to creep his way in. Guzman does have to try and get close enough to Slapshot to join him in that battle. Slapshot seems to be dropping back, which is not good for Guzman. Guzman does not want to come by nice slap shot trying to defend the position where Guzman really just needs to try and find a way by. I don't believe that Scari is trying to defend against Guzman, and no, he is not. He slides out of the way and allows Guzman to go on through. But again, Guzman fighting an uphill battle to try and run down two leaders who were really just as quick as he was. Guzman still holds the fastest lap of the race, at least for now. And with the age of tires, he should continue to hold the fastest lap of the race. Nightstalk tries to go for the lead on Louis into Brooklands. It's not quite close enough. But I believe Nightstalk will have that move done before the end of the night. He does seem to be quicker than Louis, at least where it counts. Holding the station behind. Slowly but surely running out of time. Nico now starting to pull a little bit of a gap against Sylph. We will continue to watch the Louis and Nightstalk saga. Louis is absolutely no slouch in AM, and now starts to pull away from Nightstalk just a bit. Lots of rotation coming from the Audi of Nico, and Guzman just when everything goes bad, it goes worse. A drive-through penalty for track limits from Guzman. And Guzman will end his night there. Very unfortunate turn of events for Guzman. Has had everything go his way, but just has not been able to capitalize, and usually by no fault of his own. Sylph looks like he will march one step closer to securing himself his first Drivers' Championship here at GoFAST Racing, and his second team championship here at GoFAST Racing under the MSA Racing name. It is still not over between Nico and Sylph, still not over between Louis and Nightstalk. Louis is starting to pull away a bit more, just as Nico is starting to pull away a bit more from Silth. Did have quite a few battles heating up. Just not going to end any way any of the participants would have hoped. And again, Silth may be looking at a penalty for that incident between himself and Guzman. That did ultimately put Guzman on the track that he will not finish the race on. About 10 minutes left of the race, and Nico, I do believe that is an extension of track limits running through the inside there at the final corner of Woodcut. And I would not risk a drive-through penalty for track limits at this stage of the race. Peachy will score more points than Scary, but I don't believe it's going to be anywhere near as many as he would have needed. It will be some, but it's going to create a very big what-if situation for Peachy heading into the final round next week at Spa, racing for that AM Championship. Currently a 25-point difference between himself and Scary, and that gap will shrink. Currently should shrink. I believe drop races have been calculated. PG does have one no score that will be calculated as a drop and one low finish. So drop races calculated, things are subject to change as the standings are updated, but as of right now, Peachy is just a few positions behind Scary in the standings. As long as he can finish strong and strongly ahead of Scary, tonight may be just enough to tie those positions, tie those championship points. Does come down to the total official tally. I can only guess within so much accuracy, but with the drop races and everything and how it's all calculated, it's really hard to pinpoint where things will go exactly. Laps left to go, and Silth is still hard on the charge. Nightstalk still on the charge against Louis. The race is still very on, but it seems both of the battles maybe took a bit of a rest. Nightstalk is going to be on a lap older tires than Louis, but Nico is going to be on lap fresher tires to Silth. Really, for Nico, all he needs to do is stay ahead and not make any mistakes, and it should be easy running from here to the end for Top Gun Racing, and that will be some points scored. I don't believe Top Gun Racing, with their 2 drivers having participated in the race tonight, will be enough to eclipse the MSA Racing team, but I don't believe the MSA overall team championship is clinched. I believe with the right result at the end of the season next week at Spa, it may be very possible. It looked like Nico is maybe going to have a bit of an over-rotation from the Audi there, but it may be very possible that Top Gun Racing takes home a team championship at the end of the season due to the lack of a teammate for Silth. Purple GT3 may have just helped out Nico in a major way. Needs to yield to Silth behind. And thank you, Ib Schofield, for the raid. We are just finishing up here with our penultimate round. GoFAST Racing Season 7 here at Silverstone. And there is a battle here between our top 2, Nico and Silth. It does really seem that the rear end of that Audi coming out of Beckett's and into Chapel really does want to over-rotate. It could just be the way that the rear end of the Audi is bouncing. It does seem to be moving quite a bit more than the rest of the field. Silth, does he have enough left at the end of this race? Thank you for the raid, Schofield. Always appreciated. I don't believe Silth will be quite able to catch up to Nico, but Nico does have a little bit of traffic up ahead. It's the number 3 of Ouroboros, who is a long tenured driver who would not stick around too long if he was found to be in the way. And Nightstalk has just really dropped back. Was running down the Lamborghini of Louis. And what has happened? We have lost Silth right at the very end of this race. Silth has had a disconnection. I don't know if we've lost any of our other drivers. Silth has had a major disconnection, and that is going to have a very big implication in the championship if the points stick with Silth not finishing the race. That would be a major championship implication. Slapshot will be nowhere near close enough to catch up to Nico. And Scary, the AMP Championship leader, after that incident early on, I think just getting out of the way of the 712 and the 12. Top two currently racing in the AMP split. Nightstalk is catching the Louis now. I wonder if he had just let off the pressure, save his tires for the end. He is much quicker in a straight line and has now halved the gap between himself and Louis, just up ahead. Was 3 seconds, now 1.5. There is only going to be one more lap of this race as Nightstalk just tried and played the strategy directly into his hand. Was on lap older tires than Louis as Nightstalk attempted the unsuccessful undercut. But does Nightstalk have the pace to run down Louis and secure the AM win? It would have to be absolutely everything that he's got on this lap, and he'd have to have a major tire advantage. For 1.4 seconds is the gap now. And Nightstalk may very well have an opportunity. Can he get close enough? He is definitely gaining through Maggots and Beckett's, and will continue to gain as he has the higher top speed of the two down the hanger straight. But does he have enough? Nico will take home the win overall. Slapshot P2, Ted Herkis P3. 1.2 seconds the gap now. It's a large gap to try and close, but Nightstalk does still have the opportunity to close it. Down the Hamilton straight, Nightstalk needs to close a lot more than he has so far before he gets to the Wellington straight. The Wellington straight is really going to be his only opportunity at going for that overtake. And it would have to be a late lunge into Brooklands. Is Nightstalk close enough? Nico has taken the checkered flag and won. 2 in a row for Nico. Slapshot takes P2. Ted Herkis will take home P3. What about for the win in AM? Is Nightstalk close enough for the drag race out of Luffield? I don't believe so. Less than a second between them, though. It is going to be Louis taking home the win in AM. Nightstalk will take home P2 if he can't catch it before the line. He does not. Just over half a second between the two as they come to the line. An absolutely amazing race in AM. And Force Fate will take home P3. Peachy will bring home P4. And the stage just may be set for Peachy and Slapshot to steal championships away at the end of the season, in the season finale. We'll have to wait and see what the verdict is from Silth. First of all, whether or not the finish will be at the disconnection or at the checkered flag, in which Silth would score no points. And Ouroboros will be the final driver to cross the line. Nico, Slapshot, and Ted, your overall podium. Louis, Nightstalk, and Force Fate, your AM podium. Peachy has a decent opportunity at taking home the AM Championship. Slapshot may just have a chance at stealing away the Pro Championship. And Ouroboros, I believe, has run out of fuel and will have to try and coast to the line. But I don't think he will be able to get close enough. Just rolling, 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 rolling. As we will go ahead and raid Trackalicious as they have their season finale. We'll see if Ouroboros is able to make it to the start-finish line. And just creeping ever so slowly. I don't believe that Ouroboros is going to be able to make it. And I believe there he has stopped. Thank you all for tuning in. We will go ahead and raid Trackalicious, and I will see you all next week for the season finale at Spa. Thank you all, and have a good night.